Here we go. So, this is for a little bit of the storyboard process. So when you're handed down a script, is there an easy way to switch from one tab to the next? Yeah, it's working. Okay. So I have one of the storyboards open, and this is the action one from the very old show of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So when you're starting in and you just got a new script, you start by reading all of it if possible. We're going to try to stick to one page today. It's going to be the second one, but the information of the setting are on the first page. So fade into an establishing shot, widget fortress during the day. If I remember, there's some information on one of those scripts, maybe not this one. They only have the characters, but I think the Batman one had information on the settings. It had a lot of information of the exteriors. So we can have, for today, for this example, we can imagine what the widget fortress looks like, because I have no idea. We truck in, and that is a camera move, as we hear battle sounds coming from the fortress. So this would be an establishing shot with only sound coming out of screen. And then we can see that He-Man is going to be there, Beastman is going to be there, and Tila and Squinch. So there's a bunch of characters that we will have to take into account within the scene, and they're going to have a dialogue, so it would be really helpful to draw a map or have background references to where they would be placed. So let's get back to the process. So we're breaking down the script. You have to read it completely first. I wasn't doing a good example of that because I was just doing an overview for the demonstration purposes only. So I would note down the characters, location, and draw a map to help visualize the space, like I said yesterday. Most scenes start with a wide establishing shot. This is used to set the environment, time of day, and general reset of the information for the audience. And what I mean by that is, of course, this can be done differently. You don't need to have an establishing shot all the time. Say your characters are doing a heist and they want to steal a vase from a museum. You could have a shot of the vase, very beautiful, sparkling, and it's a beautiful place in the museum. Or you could have an outside shot of the museum first, so that we know where we are. But there's plenty of ways to start with, but I would still do an establishing shot, even if it's not the first one. So back to this heist example, you could have the first shot being of the vase, but then the second shot being of the museum, especially if the characters are on the roof of the museum about to break in to get the vase. It would be nice to, we know what they're looking for, it's the vase. We know where they are, just on top of the vase on the glass roof of the museum. If the characters are, I don't know, burying treasure, you could have your first shot be just of the action of the shovel, just digging the dirt, but then you'd have a larger shot like this one on the middle, so you know that they're on a tropical island burying treasure. It just helps your audience know where they're sitting and what they're watching. And it's a nice reset when going from a sequence to another to have this sort of breathing room, just to realize that something has changed. You may or may not include the characters in that first shot, like I said. Having their voices off screen is a nice tie-in of the action. So if I'm going back to this heist and we have a shot of the vase, we could have the characters talking even though we don't see them. Like, here it is, the magnificent vase we're going after, we're finally gonna have it. Or if they're burying the treasure on a tropical island and we only see the shovel, they could be grunting or doing something and just They're here even if we don't see them. If the scene starts with dialogue right away and no specific action, you will want to be with your characters to have their mood and setting established for later on. So, yeah, here on this example, we have two characters talking across a fire. So, if they're not doing anything specific and we just know that they're in the forest talking, being able to see them, kind of closing in up on them progressively just gets us a little bit more cozy and we feel like we belong in their group. And if they were doing an action, you could just cut straight away to that action. So yeah, dialogues. Don't hesitate to be cheap and reuse your shots. You don't need to make it more complicated than necessary. Save your time and energy for action sequence, or if you need to make a gag that wasn't in the script or add additional information later, start by having things flat and simple at first. What we want to see is the information and the emotions the characters are sharing. Any extravagant acting will take the audience's attention away, so don't try to reinvent the wheel. Simple shots work very fine. You have to work smarter, not harder. So when doing a dialogue, just having them be on a side of the screen, try to keep in mind that it's good to have the rule of thirds and have your characters sitting not exactly center, helps read the placement better. And you don't need to have them be on weird angles if there's no power dynamic, if there's not something special being exchanged. Just having them kind of match like this back and forth, reusing the same composition works very well. You don't want to confuse your audience. You don't want to make anything too complicated when there's no need to be. And that's okay. That's not being lazy at all. It's just doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. So you can add information later. You can always go back and add more information. So what I mean by a first pass is that maybe as you're reading your script, you can draw some thumbnails in the margins of your script and then just do some thumbnails on paper. And those will help kind of lay the groundwork. And if you're working digitally, you just add a couple of blank images. You're not drawing any camera movements. You're just getting all the ideas, the main ideas done, and then you go back and you add more information, you refine your drawings, you work your composition a little bit better. But just having the key elements of your story down first helps visualize if the whole thing works together and if the information that you want to transmit your audience does translate correctly. I'm not reading my slides, but I'm saying the same information. Yeah, don't try to add too much information in every shot. Contrast is key. Whereas it doesn't matter if it's comedy, maybe I'm talking too fast. It doesn't matter if you're boarding for comedy or action, having contrast is what is going to make your punches and your jokes land. It's very powerful to have a moment of quiet before a punch or before a gag. If a character is going to say a joke and you have a little bit of time to process their joke, it's going to land a lot better than if you're trying to skip it too fast. Yeah, if every sequence is packed 100%, it doesn't feel like it's 100% anymore. And at best, you just risk confusing your audience. So give them some time to breathe and reflect on the previous scenes. And we have an example of the same two characters talking just as before, but where on your first pass you could have like just this back and forth. On your second pass, you can add more information of the cat, for example, taking marshmallow, blowing on it because it's hot, and eating it, and then talking with the stick. Whereas the dog is a little bit they burnt the marshmallow and they can't eat it. There's some safe zones to keep in mind as you're working on your first pass. On Storyboard Pro, there's a very easy way to visualize these safe zones. This was used back when you would watch television, especially before digital screens, when you had like the light bulb screens. Some information would be lost sometimes going from one screen to another. They didn't have the same formats or the same zoom. So there was this very old habit of having safe zones. And the title safe is that any text that happens on the screen has to be within that space, otherwise it risks being cut. And the action safe is for any type of action that enters that area risked being cut in the past. Now that we have digital screens, this doesn't happen as much, but it's still a good thing to keep in mind, because any element of your action that's going to be towards the edges of your screen is going to read in a weird way. It sometimes feels that the character is leaving the screen, or it's just unbalanced and doesn't read as well. I have an example on the next slide. So when the character is sitting on the edge like this, it feels just very weird and very like he's about to go out of the screen. But it feels more balanced when elements are inside that sort of area. We can talk a little bit of camera placements on different ways that you can place them. If you're doing a sitcom show or a preschool show, or something that you want to read as very simple, maybe a little bit childish, not in a bad way, but very like camera placements or weird angles aren't the focus of your show. You can always add them, but you want your show to be kind of quiet and simple. Having this sort of basic shot is totally fine. And you have a lot of this sort of, a little bit like a 2D platform game, having the camera always on the same side and never tilting or turning in any way is very funny looking and a very nice way to use 2D animation especially. But then you can introduce one shot with perspective for more impact, or if you have a more realistic or action-packed show, having contrast between these up shots and down shots and Dutch angles that we're going to tackle on the next slide is nice to add some new information. Don't go willy-nilly adding up shots or down shots for no reason though. Like I said yesterday, they have a sort of feeling to them and a sort of meaning to them as well. Having an up shot puts the character in a sort of dominating position, whereas a down shot makes them a little bit more diminished. So having them on a down shot could mean that they're in danger, could mean that they're looking down upon. It can be a way to emphasize their loneliness or that they're sad, whereas the up shot can show that they're standing on higher ground, literally, and they have the upper hand, either physically or emotionally. And these are very powerful shots that you should use for a reason. Dutch angle is when you tilt your camera from side to side, and it shows action, it shows unbalance, and can be used to show that something is wrong or introduce a new character into the scene with a lot of drama. They could pop in and be like, "Hello, I have knives," or they're running on the edge of the ground. Dutch angles are to be used sporadically, I think. Try to use them, like I said, for the rest of the camera placement for a reason, if possible. Yeah, It elevates the emotion of the scene. Downshots make a character feel smaller, inferior, and upshots confident. Dutch angles are used to create uncertainty, unease, and suspense. And a wide establishing shot can be used as emotional resets. For camera moves, we have a lot of technical terms. We have pan, zoom, dolly, and I don't have examples for all of these, but a lot of the times we mostly use zooms or pans, and then sometimes animate the background for a very action scene, but that's a lot of work and should be used sporadically. If you always have backgrounds moving, it's going to tire your audience. They're going to feel tired from feeling that they have a visual workout. So a camera pan is very useful to follow the character as they're moving around a scene, or if you're moving from a character to another. So let's say this first pose is character A and the second one would be character B. It's a nice way to show them up close so that you can read their action, emotion, and move to the other one so that you can register them as well without having a wide shot. If you want to be directly close to them, having a pan from one character to the next is a nice way to keep them close together within the same shot and save yourself a cut. A zoom in or out is a very useful tool. You don't have to be as dramatic as this example. You can have a very slight zoom in, like on this one. It's like sprinkle on top of the cake. You can add it to, don't add it to every shot, of course, but once you're done doing your first and second pass, you can add some camera moves like this to just give a little bit more pizzazz to your storyboard and just add a little bit more life in it. But don't do it for every scene. Use it with parsimony on just some shots that you feel here and there could be improved with getting a little bit closer into the characters, or the opposite, just zooming out a little bit. Back to the heist example, if we have this first shot on the vase and we see it's a very beautiful vase and we hear the characters being very happy that they're finally having access to the vase, and then we see them on the roof of the museum. What could be a nice way to tie these shots together is that we zoom out a little bit from the vase and then we still zoom out a little bit from the museum shot where we see the characters are there, and I can draw these examples later to make it more understandable, because this is a very abstract notion to explain vocally. But just having the same zoom out motion on the two shots kind of keeps the action flowing together. Try to keep your camera placements and move consistent. So if your camera is moving from the left to the right, don't suddenly have a camera moving the opposite way. It's going to confuse your audience. So yeah, keep the characters moving the same way, the camera moving the same way. If you have a sudden change in that, it's going to pop and have a visual jump. And the way that you can circumvent those sometimes is having a match cut like I tackled yesterday. So what I meant by those is that you have a character jumping, and if they're still jumping on the next frame, even though their placement is different, here they're on the left side of the screen and here they're a little bit more on the right side of the screen. But because our eye tracks this motion and is attracted to this focal point that has the same movement, it can be read as matching together and having continuity. And on this second example, they're swinging a sword, and despite the sword being still a little bit on the right of the screen and then being on the left, the fact that it's having the same motion ties these two shots together. And a way to break the 180-degree rule to have one character be first on the right side of the screen and then on the left side of the screen is to have a wipe like this, or the character turning themselves. So if they start looking back and they're here on the right side of the screen and they turn back, you can have them on the left side of the screen, and it'll make a little bit of sense. There's different ways to approach script. There's no wrong way to do it. It's different moods and ways to do it. Here we have a little bit of a more flat approach. Everything is very like a feeder stage. We're seeing from one side, and the characters are moving on a sort of flat rectangle, and they're always on the same at the same distance from the camera, and always profile. And this isn't bad. This is it's very comedic. It's a very simple way to share an information, and I'm really like for words. It's just very simple and very readable for your audience. So if you want to focus on character acting, if you want to focus on comedic timing, this is a great way to save your energy for that. Whereas cinematic is a lot of pizzazz, it's a lot of having a lot of gray tones, it's having depth of field, different placements in perspective, and it doesn't have to be very different. There's not a lot of new information. It's still the same shot of the cat and mouse and the cat in the cemetery and the two of them talking. Just adding the little bit element more breaks the evenness, and you can alternate between these two types of shots to have contrast again. And for example, if you have this first flat shot and then followed up by this second shot, it has this impact. You could have this shot way, like a little bit more backwards with your camera, have a little bit more space, and when you zoom in, you have this cinematic view of the cat and the mouse, and you're really into that action. It suddenly becomes like, wow, what's happening? What is so special about this mouse? Oops, sorry, I scrolled away. But having a mix and match of these, of having more flat shots and then more cinematic shots, having this alternate rhythm is what makes it pop. I feel like I'm repeating myself a bit, but yeah, try to save your energy and have some quote-unquote flat shots from time to time. That's totally okay, and it makes your cinematic shots feel even more cinematic. For action and fight sequences, I think it's easier to break them down. Use a lot of reference. For example, if there's a car chase, but you don't even know how to drive, look at what's already been done. Car chases. Look at car chase movies. Look at images of racing cars with motion blur. Add some effects like those. But look at what has already been done by people that have more experience on a topic that you don't know that well. And don't be afraid to copy. Don't be afraid to use the same composition, the same cuts, the same camera moves that you feel are interesting and could be valuable to your project. And if there's no reference that could be found, which would be a very rare occasion, try to break it down. For example, if character A is in the script, if it says character A fights character B, and there's only this line of text in the script, and you don't know how to board that, try to add as many steps to this action as you can. Try to break it down, even just in text at first, and then you can pick the shots that you want to draw and that you feel would be interesting, and try some different combinations of those, and what will make your action sequence feel so interesting is have many cuts, many different rhythms of actions happening and different focuses, so that you can, for example, this example that I have here of character A fighting character B. Character A could look down menacingly at character B, so we could have an upshot of character A being very mysterious and a little bit dominating. They pull out a knife, so we can have a little bit of a close-up on the hand, kind of sheathing out a knife from their belt or their back. They strike a fighting pose, so you could have a scene where we see both characters and we can see that character A is having the upper hand. They lunge forward. We can have a shot from maybe character B's perspective, or if we feel that maybe the first upshot of character A was already a point of view of character B. Maybe let's have a view of the back of character A as they're lunging forwards character B. And on the same shot, we could have character B kind of protect themselves and defend themselves. And you just write it down and you try to feel how your characters would react, what would be their style, where their position in the space and in the social hierarchy, who has the upper hand morally or physically, and just write all of that down, and it'll help a lot to kind of deconstruct that fighting sequence or action sequence. Don't forget to have very strong silhouettes, poses that read at first glance and have a very nice line of action. What I mean by that is that, for example, they're just not just standing straight. You can have them have a little bit of dynamism, maybe tilt a little bit the shoulders or something. And if a character is sad or angry, try to push that drawing. You don't have to do it on the first pass. On the first pass, you can just place your characters around, but come back to them later and push their acting further. And a good rule to keep in mind as well is not to have their face obscured. So this example is really good with a character pointing. Try to have them with the limb that's further away from the camera, so that it's not hiding their body and that the posture is more readable. Try not to overpose too much, unless you're trying to go for a kinetic approach. Have drawings that are very readable at first glance and that add a very important information. You don't need to overdo it. You don't need to animate it. So you can always add, if you want, on a very last pass, some squash and stretch, if you're asked to, but that would start to be an animation. As long as you have very readable poses, going from A to B is totally okay, and you don't have to be, you don't need to have an in-between necessarily. Use yourself as reference, finally. So you may not be a dancer, you may not be a driver, but maybe some people you know are, and you can still try to pose as a driver in a car to see how they place their hands. Like you have this imaginary wheel, and you're like, oh, so they're not placing their hands on the side of the wheel, they're placing it on top. That feels more natural. Just acting it out just helps you put yourself in the body and mind of your character, and helps a lot when you're stuck. I was thinking I could do a demo after this. If you have any questions?
Вопросы?
I hope I didn't go too fast. I feel like I went very
No, it's
fast.
okay. We have a couple questions right here.
Okay.
Можете перевести? Где искать референсы для очень необычных
Do you have any resources where we can find reference for very specific angles?
Yes. Let me look that up.
Can you post it in the chat, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Boop, boop, boop. I will just write it down and look it up later for different camera placement, but I know that there's some very good websites with those. There's not that many of them, to be honest. It's either upshot, downshot, Dutch angle, or just having them parallel. It also helps if you're boarding a dialogue sequence. Try to view your storyboard without the dialogue, not having the script next to it. If the action isn't reading very well without the text, then something is wrong. You should be able to understand what the characters are feeling, even if you don't have the dialogue, like in a mute sequence. But yeah, there's not that many other camera placements. The most novelty that you can add is whether a character is on the foreground or the background, and move a little bit with the horizon line where you place it. Just again makes the character either feel small, taller. What do you mean about cliches? A storyboard cliche?
I think she means about the typical camera placements and compositions regarding characters. Maybe that.
I think there's not really that much cliche things in storyboarding. There is 1,000 ways to do it, of course, as many people there are, but there aren't actually that many. That doesn't make any sense, but although no two people would do the same drawing, there's not that many compositions difference that they may achieve, and it's totally okay to have simple shots. They're not cliche or basic, they're just necessary. A tree is a tree and a ball is a ball, and simple shots will always be there. Even in Oscar awarded movies, you'll find that they're using the simple compositions the most.
Нету больше вопросов.
For action and fights, about how to break down a shot. Going back to right window, flat versus cinematic. A flat shot adds a lot of comedy because it kind of removes the character's point of view from the scene. You're kind of seeing it as kind of looking into an aquarium, and I can't explain why. It's the best way to have a chill plan. It makes physical humor play way better. For example, if a piano were to fall on the cat, it would land way better on the flat shot than on the cinematic shot. If that makes sense.
Ну, нету вопросов, да? Okay, I don't believe that we have any questions yet.
Okay. Okay, so I think that I can do a demo of how to break down, for example, that He-Man script. Just gonna add a couple of shots to this project.
А, Д, В, Ай, С как С русская. Да. И Е.
I'm getting a little bit lost with the tabs.
Пиздец.
Okay.
Это настолько литературно написано,
Is
что
it
просто...
blinking for you as well? This is a little bit weird. I don't know why it's doing that. Yeah, it's blinking a lot. Let me try to show my whole screen. It's gonna be better. That's better. Good. I'm gonna try to import the script into...
I'm sorry, I have a very quick personal question. I mean, not personal,
Yeah?
but like a professional. Have you ever used Photoshop to animate something?
No. Photoshop for animation is terrible.
Okay.
I have tried it, but it's a nightmare. It's possible, but it's not comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
If you really like Photoshop and you don't have access to any other software, why not? But Krita is free and it does a better job.
No, I like animating in Photoshop because it's very easy to break your project apart and then convert it to the After Effects where you can add like extra effects or something like that.
Yeah, but handling the timing in Photoshop is not very practical. Flipping between your images, adding keyframes, and then breaking it down for in-betweens is a nightmare. I can see that it's very interesting if you want to do everything within one software. So if you're very used to it and you paint your backgrounds in it and you paint your effects because it has a lot of options for color management and brushes, you could do it all in one. But there's maybe one or two studios that use it professionally, and it's definitely not commonplace because it is not proficient at all. Whereas for doing animation, it's going to be in a team, it's going to be all separate. So the 2D animator is going to focus on having the clean lines and maybe the coloring done. And they're not going to focus on the background or compositing or effects at all. And all of these different layers are exported still and imported in After Effects the same way. Good animation software will let you export your animation on transparent PNGs, and you can import them into After Effects just fine. And,
I see, thank you.
It works really well. I am going to try to paste the go onto my page and see if that works. It doesn't. It should work though. Let me try to copy it again and paste it. No. Okay, so I'm just gonna type it down. So it's fade in, establishing shot, rigid fortress. Fade. And I'm just gonna Google real quick what the widget fortress looks like. And it's a basic castle. So I'm just gonna take my brush and do a very simple horizon line. I want it to be kind of flat. And I just lay out a very simple perspective grid. I'm not using any actual focal point. I'm just making it very simple, and it's going to be a very basic castle. I'm not going to bother with extra information. So if we have an establishing shot, and this is the castle that the characters will be going to, we just see that it's daylight. We have a castle and maybe it's surrounded by a little bit of bushes and forest. And then the script goes into, we truck in, as we hear echo sounds coming from the fortress, and cut into man. Angle, he's pulling the rope. Man is pulling the rope that binds the two beasts. Isn't going anywhere. So how could we draw that? There's a couple of ways, and we can just draw that in the margins. I don't think that I want to show He-Man straight away, so it could be just his hands pulling on the rope down like this, and then we see on a more global shot that maybe there's a tree or something with some branches, and there's two beasts angling, and he's pulling the rope like that. So we cut from A to B. And as you can see, I'm not making pretty drawings, and I hope that this is still understandable for you. I can hear some questions. Yeah, this is Toon Boom Storyboard Pro. Let me get back to my script. The other way that we could do it, if we want to show He-Man straight away, is that we can have He-Man maybe maybe he's doing a little bit more effort, like that, and we have him on an up shot, so we know that he's strong. Whereas this was more of a flat shot, just having it profile. But this would be a little bit more cinematic, and you can see his pushing, and then reveal the two characters. I think I want to show his expression first, but if we want to start with the two beasts, and I do not know what they would look like. Let's say that they're tied by the rope. They're, I don't know, some sort of dog or giraffe. And we want to have their point of view. This is the tree that they're dangling on. And I want to make this either a Dutch angle or something with a little bit of perspective, because there's some action going on. This rope would be going down, and then we'd reveal human. But because there is a lot of effort being done by He-Man to lift these two people up, I don't want it to be too flat. It would be unfitting, because it would look a little bit too comedic. So I'll have a couple of options here, and I think I might go for this second, a mix of this first option and second option. I'll just add a little bit of perspective to this first shot, and I'll have a two profile. But I don't want to reveal He-Man right away, so it's gonna be a little bit more of the same, just bigger. I could have just copied it, that's why I selected it at first, but I'm not gonna make 3D drawing at all. It's just holding that. He has a bowl cut. He's just holding that string and pulling it down, and then we're gonna have. We could zoom out from this to reveal the beasts, but it might be a little bit more comedic to have them go up rhythmically as He-Man is pulling the rope up from the tree. So we just see this rope going down, and these two beasts
Это He-Man подвешивает зверей, чтобы они никуда не убежали.
And just mark it with different colors so that I know the direction they're going. And then I'm going to come back and maybe clear the drawings. But as long as I understand them and that my team can read them, it's okay. And they're big cats, I guess.
Они кошки.
Это кошки? Это кошки явно не нравится, что их подвесили.
Closing on He-Man. Give up, Beastman. You've lost. I'm not going to type it again because I feel like it's taking a little bit too much time. So we can cut back to sort of this shot. We have He-Man kind of holding the rope with one hand. He's yelling maybe at someone. A Beastman to tell him that he has lost. And he can write it down that this is crappy. And just move on like this. Angle on Beastman, angry with 2 more creatures flanking him. So he's gonna be on the other side, because we had He-Man be on this half of the screen. So for Beastman, he's gonna be on this half of the screen. And it says angle, so we're gonna keep the upward angle. Even though he's defeated, he's still the super villain of the show, I guess. And he cannot be completely defeated yet because it's an episodic show. Even though I have never watched it, I know there's a lot of episodes and they never actually win. They make a little bit of progress every time, but they don't win. So even though Beastman has lost, he's still very strong because it says that it has 2 more creatures flanking him and his voice line is never. So, I don't know what Beastman looks like. But if he has 2 creatures on his side, I don't know what kind of pose he could strike. He's an evil guy, but we don't want to make him too silly. So he could have his sword up, but that would be too silly. I don't know if he could have like both his hands on his sides. That would be a little bit too static. I feel like maybe if he's pointing like this, it's funny, but it's still readable. Never. It's an option if you have a better idea of how to pose them. Maybe he's just with his hands behind his back, very confident, never. He's lost, but he still has ground. Maybe he's looking behind his shoulder. Never. His arm on his back, just a sort of opposite view from that. And I'm just trying a couple of different ideas and see what feels better for me. And what his pose could be. Something that still gives him confidence, but shows that he's lost. And I think that last one would be kind of nice. It's the kind of the villain thing to do, to move back over your shoulder. Maybe he has a cape. He's on a ledge. This is not the best idea, but I can always go back to it and change it later. One way that Toon Boom lets me do this when I'm not very confident about a shot, if this is good for me, I can make it green. This is okay. I might change it because I might change He-Man's poster on this. This is fine to me. This is fine. This, I'm not very sure, so I make it color-coded, or I just write on the side, change Beast Man pose. And then I just move on. I don't spend too much time on it. I want to make sure that the flow of the scenes is okay. This is the main focus of storyboarding. And as you can see, I haven't added any camera moves, and this will be like cherry on top for later. It's not yet first pass material. We move back to the beasts. And Beastman out of screen says, "You two, get the girls." And there's another way that we could have interpreted that first idea. I realize is that He-Man is pulling a rope that binds two beasts together. So maybe they're stuck like this with a rope around them, and He-Man is actually pulling like this. Eat up. And he's pulling away this way while the two beasts are stuck. So there's another way to interpret that thing. I have no images, so I'm going a little bit on a whim, and I feel like the beast might be some kind of hybrid dog that he could be pulling up. But here in the script it says that Beastman says to the beast that go get the girl, and the creatures charge off screen. So I think that means the beasts that are on his side. So a good way to do that, I wouldn't create a new shot. This is a nice idea. So Beastman could actually use that second pose that I added with the finger and just, me too, go get the girl. And you can see me going back and forth, which I wouldn't have done if I had read the whole script completely first. And he has a cape, so maybe it's gonna go back. And he turns. Just gonna copy that line. You go get the girl. And then I would have the two beasts charge out. And this is a first pass, so again, no pre-drawings. I just want a new color. See that the beasts are on another layer. Maybe I can just have this a little bit grayed out. And then we have these two beasts here. I'm gonna make them purple so that we have some continuity. These two beasts are gonna go forward. They're gonna be bigger on the screen. This is some terrible drawings because I'm in a rush. Maybe they're cats or something, not their paws. And they're going forward, like so. So they kind of wipe the camera, and a good way to collect them back would be to have them, I'm gonna make some small drawings to explain my process. You have them again, and they're jumping like this. Inside, and we have their target being looked down upon. And we can have a Dutch angle with maybe the background a little bit tilted so that all of the information is pointing towards her victim. And this is a way to kind of make her feel very closed in, like trapped. Everything is kind of pointing towards her. This would be my first go-to. it says on the script that the creatures charge and then there's an angle on Squinch, which I think is a sidekick character that is being menaced by a creature, an angle on Tila. She grabs a rope hanging nearby and swings out of screen. So maybe the girl is with a side character, and I would put him on the left just for convenience. And as we could have a zoom in with this to make it even more cramped and to make them even more trapped, we can then have a zoom in on this character, and I'm just gonna color code it purple again. So this is the sidekick, and they're scared, so they're protecting themselves with their arms. I'm kind of really scared where the beast is right next to them with big teeth and an upset face. And then we have their sidekick. Maybe we have camera movement that shows the sidekick being threatened, but the girl who's with him has none of it. She just grabs a rope nearby that we should see in the first shot, and just fix the rope and go, basically. So this would be an idea, and I would like to find another one just to be sure that I have options. And also, I feel like this is a little bit flat and a little bit repetitive, so maybe there's another angle that I can find for this action. And this is where I'm going to use the tip that I use for the action sequence. So when there's, I feel, too much information for a few lines of script, I'm going to try to break it down. So Squinch is being menaced by a creature. There could be more information on this. Maybe Squinch gets taken in the mouth of the creature and they're desperate. Maybe the creature has them like this. Maybe this is all very bad drawings, as you can see. I'm just not going for perfect. I'm just going for something that is very fast. I would polish this a little bit more for an actual storyboards, but here we only have a little bit less than an hour to go. So if I want to try to get to another page of script, I have to go very fast. And then if I'm too stuck, and if I know that I want to get further in the script, and this is a little bit of annoying to board, because I know that I want to make it interesting, but I don't have yet a nice way to frame it. I don't know where this rope is dangling from. I don't know where she's going. Maybe there's a, if I have a map this way, the Squinch is here and Tila is here, and the two beasts are coming up like this from Beastman, who was there on the ledge. And the rope is gonna take Tila from here to there. Maybe there's another side to the precipice. And she's gonna go to the other side of that edge. Because she swings out of shot and then she lands into safety and she holds Squinch. So she's gonna grab him actually as she leaves. but it could be here, and she just grabs him and then has him under her arm as she's swinging towards the safe space. So I'm gonna try to stop this later. I think I'm gonna keep this shot here. So I'm just gonna copy that same drawing and put it in the frame. And then I'll figure out these other shots later. And I'm gonna move on straight away to a couple of lines of script. Either this came blank for space, and Tila, angle on Tila and Squinch. And Squinch says, gee, thanks Tila, that was a close one. So she saved him. There's gonna be a lot of upwards angles in this sequence because there's a lot of cool characters and cool stuff. So I think we're gonna have Tila, her arm is there and she has Squinch under her arm and she's holding that sort of rope. Tell me if this is too much of a messy drawing.
No, it's all right.
It's all right. It's still readable. I'm gonna try to make it a little bit cleaner though. I don't know what Squinch is gonna look like, but I think he's a tiny animal. He's looking towards somewhere else, to her destination, holding that rope. The rope is making a little bit of a visual now. For now, I'll just put it this way, but I'll write it down as not. I'll just have my thread like that. And then we can have her point of view, and she's looking down at him, and she's still a little bit more on the right side of the screen. That's where she was at first, and I want to keep it this way. So she's gonna walk back to him, and he's gonna be on the left of the screen. She's holding the rope like that, and she's holding him on the side. And here we have a down angle. And she sees another beast charging. So at first, her eyes are going to be on him, and then her eyes are going to be in the background. And we can already have her eye direction move towards him as he speaks on the first shot. And I can already break down that action. Just not even create new drawings, just displace them. And then same thing here, just gonna clean this drawing a little bit. And, he's holding that rope. She's holding her friend. And eye direction is really important, and having continuity in eye direction helps to read your script a lot. And he's going to be Tila lookout as he sees the beasts approaching. He's going to redraw his face because he sees danger. He speaks. And then she looks into the direction he's looking. It's not too much information at all, it's just very easy things, and we can have the background. Just, you know, just a blurry thing pass by behind them. She turns to see, and we have her point of view with the two beasts charging. So, could be just something like that. The two beasts. One of them closer, and one of them a little bit further to add a little bit of a cinematic side, or you can have them the same size. We have an arrow, a very badly drawn arrow, but an arrow still to understand where they're going. And then you just move on towards the camera. On Tila, she springs up out of screen. The creature runs into scene, stops, and looks up at the out of screen Tila. This is going to be a hard one. There's a lot of information. I feel like the script wants me to do it in the same shot. And I think it would be better broken down. So I'm just going to rough a couple of ideas on the side like I did earlier when I'm not very sure. So let's say she lands with her friend to safety. And maybe she chops her a rope. We can have the creatures enter the scene again, still from the same side. She's surprised. And then they want her to spring up. I don't know if she has rocket feet or something, but I don't know how she could escape. But still she would exit from still the same side of the screen. I don't want her to be going towards them. But I kind of want to break, because I was always going from left to right, and I want to break that rhythm to add a little bit more of action. Otherwise it sounds a little bit too repetitive. So the beasts would stop. So let's imagine that they're braking suddenly and coming to a halt. So imagine this sort of stagger, like a car that's braking is boop, 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 and then it stops. So it's an emergency brake. And then they look up to her kind of leaving. I could do the beast looking up. Set. And they're looking up in this direction. And I had, wait, where's none of my drawings showing? Am I too far away from the stage? Yes. You had Tila going this way in this shot, and in this way in this shot. We've already kind of broken that kind of continuity. But I still want her going this way, if it's possible. They're supposed to have a perspective of a point of view of the two creatures looking at her. So she is following the script on the ramparts next to two barrels from their point of view. So it's the ramparts of this fortress that we saw in the first shot. And I do not know how she got here. But we're inside the fortress and she's on one of the ramparts. So if it's their point of view, it's still going to be an upshot. She's up there, holding her friend still. And there's two barrels next to her. Here, maybe one a little bit behind. This is a small drawing. And she's going to push them down. So at this point, I feel like this sort of continuity works. So I'm just going to copy these drawings and then I'll get back to them to make them a little bit more clear. And it's still the same thumbnails drawings, and I'm just making them bigger and placing them into my scene. And it's just a way to get a first draft ready. This is by no means a final product. I'm just trying to show you the process of having a first pass ready to move on forward afterwards. And we're already with not timing anything, so all these drawings are just not timed. They're 1 second long. This one. I'm not sure about this one. But we have 12 panels so far. So we could think that's at least, if every panel would be 3 seconds long, you could be close to like 40 seconds of screen time, or a little bit more than a minute. So it still I still stand by the fact that 1 page of script equals a minute on screen. Even though there's not that many lines of script, it's very action-packed and it's a lot of problem solving, because as you can see, when a creature runs into scenes, stops and looks up at the OST-la, I feel that the screenwriter didn't take into account that all these shots of her from holding to the rope and just going in and out of the screen and being chased all the time kind of look the same. So I might go back to these scenes and try to find a way to maybe have it all happen more continuously, and that she already lands on the top of the ramparts instead of landing, being chased again. She's being chased once, and then she lands on the fortress without being chased twice. So we can have Squinch be keep a lookout, and she's still being followed, but she lands only once and on the ramparts. So she pushes the barrels down, and then what happens? Crash. Angle on the creatures. Squinch grins at the creature wearing the barrels. So maybe we zoom in to this. We don't have the barrels falling in this shot, we just see her, we know where she is, and we have a closer shot of her pushing the barrels out of screen. And I'm wondering if I keep this composition, just make it closer, like this, or if I try to find a new angle. I feel like she would have maybe a little bit of an acting on this shot, and I want her to look cool. It would work with the previous composition, but if I want to maybe spice it up, I could change it. Because I want to save my time and energy, I think I'm gonna copy this composition. And maybe if I find a new idea that would work later, I can just change this shot. So I'm gonna make it orange right now because I'm gonna write it down. Maybe come up with another angle. She's gonna push those barrels down with her foot because she's still holding her friend. Maybe she's holding him with both arms now. And they're both looking down. And the barrels are gonna come out of screen because we don't want to show the moment the barrels touch the creatures. This is going to be a complicated shot to animate, and it's going to remove a little bit of the mystique and of the magic of cinema. So we already want the barrels on the creature's head, and just the crashing sound will be enough to tie it together. It'll save time for the animators, for me, for everyone. I'm just gonna transform those drawings. She pushed them out of the screen and then crash. Maybe have a fade to black. And then angle the creatures. And could be their point of view. So it could be the barrels on the heads of the creature, and they're stuck, each with one barrel on their head, and trying to take it out with their paws. And as you can see, I put this character on the right a little bit too close to the edge. So I'm just going to select it and move it a little bit towards a closer, a safer zone, not inside the gray area. I always try to keep in mind that My characters are sort of still in the rule of thirds, invisible line, and it just becomes second nature to place them there. And then we have Squinch being very happy that the barrels fell on their heads, and a close-up to Tila looking down, smiling, and she looks in another direction, so we can have her friend being like, hey, hey. She's holding him. I'm sorry for these very crude drawings. And we have a camera move going from here to her face. It will be just a pan to reveal her expression. Or we could have a little bit of a zoom out. It doesn't really matter. As long as we see him first and then her later. We're almost done with the second page. Angle on Beastman, so the evil guy. His army is deserting him. The two beasts, He-Man tied up, run away comically. And Beastman says, "Come back here, you cowards! I command you, come back!" And he gets knocked down by one of his valiant warriors, making a hasty retreat. And then he's on the ground, and he starts to get up. He sees two very familiar feet step into the scene. And it's He-Man that he's gonna see, but we're not gonna do the third page. This is where the second page stops. So, as we saw before, Beastman is on the left side of the screen, and He-Man is on the right side of the screen with the two beasts that he tied up. Either to a tree or either with a rope, and they're the two of them kind of stuck. So I want to keep that, but also I had Beastman stand on a ledge, and the way that I would draw my map mentally would be, here is the tree with the two beasts tied up. He-Man, I had Squinch and Tila be here, and this would be maybe one side of a precipice or something. Here is the other side with maybe fortress walls, like that. And Beastman would be on another ledge over here. This would be a very weird fortress layout, but this is a fantasy setting, so we don't know. Maybe here is the gate, and Beastman make a retreat through there. I don't know where the rope could be dangling from. From what I found of the fortress, and I think I closed the the tab where I had the fortress open. Which fortress? There we go. It looked a little bit like this. So it seems to have vines growing up everywhere. So maybe this is where the rope came from. So I think this is a little bit, we can take some liberty as this is a fantasy setting. So it could have a lot of trees surrounding the fortress or inside the fortress. So maybe we can have more trees and vines and stuff that grows everywhere, maybe from one side to the next. And have a lot of elements in the background that could indicate where a rope could be dangling for He-Man and Tila to use. So back to this problematic, I want Beastman to exit through here because that's the only exit he could take. from what I've done before. But I want him to stay in on this side of the screen. And it says that his army is deserting him. The two beasts He-Man tied up run away comically. So if the two beasts run away, they're not going to run towards He-Man. They're not going to run towards Tila, which is over here with the two barrels that she knocked down on the beasts. So in my mind, she went this way. So the two beasts here that He-Man tied up and that are running away, I think they're going to run to safety towards Beastman. And so is Beastman's army. That could be maybe here, army. All going to run towards the exit. So my problem is, if Beastman is going to run out of the screen, and he's already on this side of the screen, he's going to run into the edge, and it feels a little bit unbalanced. So how do I problem solve this? How do I make him go this way, but then he trips, and he sees the feet of He-Man, and He-Man is on the right side of the screen. So at some point we're going to have Beastman on the floor, standing up, and He-Man looking down on him. We want him to look up from there, and maybe at first he sees the feet into the screen like that when he's defeated. This is his point of view. This is Beastman. So how do I go from him exiting towards the left of the screen to having him meet He-Man on the right of the screen? Maybe I could use, like I said, character head turn. So he's running away to this side of the screen. I still want him with not with a downward angle, either an upward angle or a profile, and we see his army go away, and maybe he says no with his hand. He's like, stay here, I command you, and we see maybe the door and all the army kind of leaving. This is an army of people kind of exiting like that, and he's like, no, come back here, cowards. Maybe he could turn his head. And then, surprise, and something runs him over and he falls by the army that's coming towards him. A lot of people trample him, and he kind of disappears under the mass of people. And then I think I could have him maybe be like, ouch. There's still like the gate behind him, and maybe the last people exiting. And then we have this shot. This could be a way, like, he's already facing this direction. He gets knocked over, so it's believable that he gets up. And he's still in the same position, but he's changed angles and matches with him watching He-Man. I could run with that. It's not the best option, but it could work. So I'm just going to take this map that I finally drawn and take it away. And just reuse again the rough compositions that I've drawn and that I think kind of work. Oopsie. I just break my timeline to create a new image. Just gonna copy his body, not even return it. And as you can see, I'm working very small, and I'm not adding any details. This might be like the size of my thumb on my tiny screen. So this is why we call them thumbnails. They're really small, and we're just trying to get the best idea across in this square here. And we're not trying to add any complicated details. And I just know that this is Beastman, and this is enough. And then when I want to add details later on, I can. And this may be a little bit too rough to show to teammates. The one I would be the most confident to show and that I put the most effort in drawing might be this one. But I wouldn't show these thumbnails just yet. I would just do another second pass on it before I show it to teammates. But I don't need to be way more sophisticated. Having this level of drawing is fine to understand what is going on. And then if my teammates agree and find that this is sufficient work material to move on and that the cuts work for them, then I would clean up the drawings and make it more pretty. And another thing I would do first is just go back and forth between my shots like this, see if everything feels okay if I pass it very fast, as if I was watching it on the screen. If you want to put more effort, you could time it as an animatic and see if it works, but that's the job of an editor, so I wouldn't time it unless I'm working for myself. Usually somebody else in the production pipeline would do it. I think that should cover, I don't want to spend too much time because I feel like this took a long, even speeding up, doing 2 pages of script in only 1 hour is very sped up, and I hope that this was understandable. I still want to keep some time for questions, so if you have any, please go ahead.
Thank you a lot. This was... I'm sorry, I can hear myself, it confused me a bit. So, the thing I'm interested about is, as I was following along, I got a little bit lost because we didn't have an establishment shot that showed us all the characters right away. So, at first I thought it was just He-Man and 2 beasts that he was hanging on a tree. And then all of a sudden Tila came out of somewhere, and Beastman came out of somewhere. Basically all those characters randomly spawned out, and it confused me a little bit.
That's very true, and I feel so too that the script kind of adds different characters, and they didn't write an establishing shot to show all the characters' placement. So that is something that you could add straight after the fortress. But if you want to have this reveal of He-Man pulling out, you first have him pulling, and then I think this would be the best place to add a shot where you see He-Man, the 2 beasts in the background. So we have the tree with the beasts hanging, He-Man, and after drawing the map later on, you could see my placements, so we could have Squinch and Tila with them. And here is He-Man pulling on the rope. and then we want to have Beastmen be introduced very dramatically. So we have them this way, and then just by having them be opposite each other, we know a little bit where they are in the space. But if you want to add even more information about where they're standing, either you change this shot to have
Ни у кого вопросов нет?
and the two beasts be maybe on the background here, and Squinch and Tila, like that. So it's basically the same shot, but you have the beasts come in, but we still see human. I feel like that might be a little bit too much information. Or maybe here you have a wide shot where Tila would kind of, you would pan from one side to the other, with Tila kind of going with her rope to safety. And in the background we have, I'm just going to change colors, the tree with the two beasts and He-Man still there. And we have the creatures charging this way. Some very crude drawings. But yeah, all the characters' placements need some figuring out so that you don't lose the audience. And having some establishing shots at different points of when the action is a little bit more quiet or too complicated. So this is why I would add in. We have the information that He-Man has pulled up the beasts. So we can now see the other characters, or when some characters are covering a great distance like this and we want to know where He-Man is standing even though he's not doing anything. But I would not add it when we have like this dialogue, because what's important here is the dialogue between the two characters. You could also have it here, where we have the tree and He-Man. I wouldn't have him that much on the edge. I think this wouldn't be the best placement. But as long as you establish it early on, you don't need to clarify it down the line. When we cut back to Beastman, we know where he's standing.
I'm sorry, but can I offer an idea that would make an introduction to the Beastman a little bit more dramatic, along with the
Sure.
establishment shots? So basically, after we see an establishment shot of all the characters when the He-Man pulls on the rope, maybe we can see like a wide shot, where we can see all the characters in the background, and in the foreground we kind of see the eye level is right on the ground, and we can see Beastman kind of putting his foot down, in a very dramatic fashion, and then we see He-Man kind of calling out to him, and after that, all as it is.
Yeah, maybe we have something down on He-Man, and here we have the ledge of Beastman.
Yeah, and Beastman kind of putting his foot down, like, bam,
Yeah. Yeah, we have in the foot, and then we pan out.
Yes,
and
yes, like this.
A good pan. And we have Beastman looking down. He-Man, Sheila, Squinch. And then, but that would introduce a problem. Because I have them on the right side of the screen, so I would need maybe to flip that if I want it to work, because my next shot, he's like this, he's on the left side of them. So maybe I just have his foot be like, ha ha ha. And then we have He-Man's point of view, and the foot could be like this and actually work.
Yeah, maybe he steps away or turns around, and we see only foot turning around, and in the next shot we see Beastman like having his back on He-Man.
We need to connect this one. But Beastman needs to stay on the left side of the screen, otherwise it doesn't work. But if we have him this way, enter with his foot like here, and he just says ha ha ha, and then we have He-Man be, what's his line again? Give up, Beastman, you're lost. And then Beastman is angry, and we cannot have this pose because it wouldn't match with him stepping in. But maybe...
Maybe we can have him facing He-Man at first, but
Yeah.
then he turns around
Yeah,
in a very dramatic fashion, and then he says like, get him.
He's on the sledge, and he could have his arm back, and then he just does this. And it's just simple, and it works. He just put his foot on this side of the screen, very, taking a lot of space, being very silhouette, kind of stepping on He-Man in a figurative way. And He-Man is like, no, you'll never win. And he's like, go get the girl. And that would be a way to have indeed a nice introduction to this guy. But yeah, you can always add later, so this is why it's good to have a rough pass, and then you see, you know what, this is not working, maybe I need to flip it around and have Beastman on the right, and indeed we need more establishing shots to know where the characters are. We're never breaking when there's an action like this, like a dialogue or a character movement that's too big. If you have, for example, Tila being chased by the beasts, and then you have an establishing shot where we see where He-Man is going to break the action in a weird way, you kind of want to have this sort of reset once an action is over, so either the dialogue or either when she lands next to the two barrels.
Can I offer another idea regarding this very shot that you have right now? So in here, Tila is supposed to travel upwards on the rope, right? So maybe while they're talking, the camera can be moving like around them, like going from this shot to under them, kind of to illustrate that they're moving upwards. Do you know what I mean?
Totally, you can totally animate it to have a change of perspective and background, like a 3D camera. This would be a nice place to insert that.
Yes.
The other shots where the beasts are tracking her are very simple. You can just have this sort of distorted perspective, kind of in like Pokemon or other anime TV shows when they're running. It's actually just the ground. It stays the same. It's just there's a little bit of FX to show that it's moving forward, but the composition stays the same, and the characters are just getting smaller to show that they're like running very fast, and we just have action lines. So for the beasts running, they're just beasts. They're not main characters. We have some simple shots like this. But for Tila, who's the main character, and she's doing a very cool action with the vine and just jumping to the tower, then having this sort of follow-up camera movement would be totally appropriate for this shot, yeah.
Позови Михаила Васильевича.
Do you have any other questions?
So I feel like nobody else has any other questions.
Doing a demo like this is,
I feel like
in such a short time is it's
Yeah.
really intense.
but it was fun, very fun.
I'll talk a little bit more about the difference between comedy and action, but I'd totally love to see tomorrow a little bit of work if you guys have any, so that I can give some feedback, because the best way to learn anything in animation is to practice. So as you can see, like problem solving a storyboard is really fun, and there's different ways to do it. So if any of the scripts that I shared are of any interest to you, or if you find one on the website that I linked that sparks your interest, I'd love to see some student examples, because giving feedback on your work would be, I think, a very nice way to show how to problem solve a storyboard.
I'm sorry, I'll be... The thing is it okay if I'll send you my examples after some time, after this all is done, because
Sure.
I'm gonna be a little bit busy in the recent days.
Okay, I'll remind my students,
Sure.
because I was hoping someone will demonstrate the overnight work, maybe not yet, as we...
That was too short.
I do hope so, that this is the reason, not the laziness or lack of interest. We still have one day to go, and I really hope that tomorrow someone will show their achievements. Anyhow, I think we're nearing the end. As for perspective reference, whoever it may concern, that Alexander asked, I googled it up and it's plenty. The strange thing is they're all leading to Pinterest. For some psychological reason, I hate Pinterest. I can't use it because I can't get to the source. But
I linked that
plenty.
file that let me share the file from my...
Perspective reference Google's up plenty. So I think this is a non-problem.
But I'm having some... it's importing the file from my computer, but this is a nice tutorial for perspectives and backgrounds from Thomas Romain, who works in the animation industry in Japan. I can share my screen to show you what it looks like while it's uploading, because it's taking a little bit of time.
In the interim, the file that you uploaded to the chat is local file, so we can't access it.
Yeah, I'm trying to upload it into the files for the
It's
class
okay to send it
material.
via email.
As you can see, it's converting. It's almost done. But here is what it looks like, and he has a very good explanation of what the camera placement towards the ground or upwards looks like, and how to change the focal point, and how to place the background on the size of the characters. It's all very informative and helps to draw backgrounds in general, but also for storyboarding. It's all very in-depth.
Twitter, Google.
It just uploaded, so...
When I searched it myself, I
download it from
found
the files.
either Pinterest or Twitter. That were the only two sources which drove me nuts, and I thought maybe you know where to dig, where else to dig. Anyhow, we'll be very grateful if you send it our way via email, for example. That's fine.
Find another link if the sharing doesn't work. There.
I'll try to Google up the file name, maybe.
I have it here. It's from Dropbox. I also uploaded it in the class material.
Oh, well, looks like we found it just by Googling the file name. Not in PDF, but like a web page.
It's
Oh,
I put it in the chat.
there it is. Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. There were like 3 students by my side watching the screen and say, oh, that is really useful, we would like to have that, and will it be available? So, great, now it is.
Thank you.
There. Thanks a lot. I shared the script you sent via email, the three about the Spider-Man and Superman. I'm still expecting the feedback. I hope you have something tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so thanks a lot for
Otherwise,
today.
I can still do more slides and another demo of a dialogue sequence. It's going to be a little bit more simple than this action one. This was the most complicated example I could find. So this was a lot to do in just 1 hour, but
it was
but
very
I'd love to give
insightful.
feedback on your work. And this is a lot of information in such a short amount of time. Back
true.
when I was learning storyboards, this would take weeks of learning, so trying to turn all that information in just a couple of hours. I hope that I'm not confusing anyone or not going too fast.
No, it's
Well, but if you load some practical exercises upon us for future tackling, we would be grateful as well. Not in this short time, but it's useful to try this and to try that. And we are more used to action scenes, not to dialogue scenes. Well, they are speaking. Too much depends on what they are saying. The action that reads itself, like this is aggression or this is friendly fight, should be readable from the action itself, not from the comments. Okay, great. Thanks for the link. We'll download that. Thank you.
Куда вы в Discord это пошлите? Thank you, Emily.
So thanks for today. We're looking forward to tomorrow and for the
Thank you so
practical
much.
results. Thank you. Thanks
Don't
everyone.
hesitate to prepare any questions if any of this was too fast.
Yeah, I'm trying to ask people if they have any questions, but nobody has any.
There's a class change right now, so the audience is changing. There's one class that they were set free and like 15 minutes here, but I have the screen recording. We'll share it during the class. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you. Have a good day. I can't wait
You
to
too.
see your storyboards.
Okay.
Show me some. I want to see.
Goodbye.
Okay, so bye for now.
Yeah, I will share the scripts again. So I linked for, this is the link for He-Man. This is a link for The Legend of Korra, which is more dialogue. For Korra, it's page 6. For He-Man, try to do page 2. And then I have Batman somewhere. What have I done with Batman? And here is Batman, page 1. For a mysterious vibe, and the Batman one has a lot of information about the setting and stuff, so it might be a little bit easier, so it's more slow-paced, and it's having a introduction of an evil character. It's a good exercise to try some angles and some, if you want to try to have some grayscales as well, this would be the best example. Don't be afraid to look up, like I did for the He-Man Fortress, what it would look like if you need some visual inspiration.
So,
Yeah, sure, you can choose any script you want.
just for the clarity, those are very big files. Should we pick out like 1 or 2 pages out of it and make our storyboard?
Yeah, just one page.
Okay.
Just one page. I chose page 1 for Batman, He-Man page 2, so it's the one that I did with Tila jumping on the fortress. And for Korra, it's page 6, which is only dialogue, I think. So it's to try to... Korra would be more for comedic dialogue, He-Man for more action, and Batman for mystique, ambiance, having some character reveal type of script. So you can try some different styles.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, good
You
afternoon.
too.
Same to you.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you.
Михаил Васильевич, я, скорее всего, завтра не смогу прийти, потому что, так выпало на неделю этого, как его, допсу, и мне, надо в субботу уже идти, и надо вот всё делать.
Ну ладно, жалко, конечно.